Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview. My name is Louis Mendes. On this week's show, we will be looking back at the goalless draw with Peterborough United and, of course, ahead to Saturday's trip down to Home Park to take on one of the top two, Plymouth Argyle. Joining me to have those conversations, plus a little bit more. First up, Mr. Lewis Catt. How you doing, Lou?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I feel like I'm one of the few people who came out of Tuesday's game saying I quite enjoyed that, and I don't know why, because most people want to go home with like there was nothing in that game. We had a few chances. I don't know if I just got excited by the red card, which we will of course talk about. And also joining us on YouTube this evening, praying that his 5G signal is going to hold up because his Wi-Fi crashed just before the show. Is the number one and only member of the Johnny Williams fan club, Tom Walling. How you doing, Tom?
Am I the only one? That's disappointing.
Only one left around these parts, anyway.
Fair enough. Yeah,
well,
I'm all right. I enjoyed Tuesday because I wasn't there. So, yeah, had a lovely evening.
Fair point. That's sadly the best way to enjoy Charlton games these days is to not go. Right. So, as I said on this week's show, we're going to hear the red card incident shortly. We'll hear from Dean Holden. I want to hear from you guys. Welcome, everyone who's joining us on live on YouTube. Make sure you get your views in the comments section. Let us know what you made of the red card and the non-red card for Jez Rak-Sakyi. Let us know what you made of the performance against Peterborough. We want to have your say on Charlie Mevans' statement that was briefly out yesterday. Feel free to do that. And of course, as I said, we're looking ahead to Plymouth, so we will want your ideas in terms of team news. Anything you'd like to see change in the side? What do we need to do to stop this little run of no goals? We've now gone nearly 6 hours without a goal. So it's 3 games plus the majority of the Forest Green game since we scored. So a slight concern there as well. Macaulay Bond tried his best on Tuesday night, but the shot he had that went for a throw-in sort of sums up where we are in front of goal at this moment in time. We're going to be joined hopefully later on in the show as well by a Plymouth Argyle fan, hopefully live. So we've not done this before on one of our live streams, getting an opposition fan in the show. So hopefully Finn from Argyle Life will join us, assuming his Wi-Fi works as well. Right, before we hear the incident, Lewis, I mean, the overall performance against Peterborough in midweek, what a cracker.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's a strange one, really, because I thought we played quite well. I thought first half especially, we looked a lot more controlled in that same system that we played Saturday, where we maybe didn't look quite as assured. I thought we looked more comfortable on the ball. I thought we pressed well, and I thought that when we had the ball, we turned with possession quite well. But it's the same old story that the problem there is that despite having all of the ball and promising signs of play, that there's nothing really in the final third in terms of sticking the ball in the back of the net. And I'm disappointed mainly because Peterborough, off the back of such a good result of the weekend, beating Saturday's opponents, Plymouth 5-2. I thought that it would be quite a difficult test, especially going there. And off the back of it being postponed last time, it felt a little bit like maybe we've caught them in a bit of an upturn when before they weren't in as good form. But I was quite either impressed with how we played or disappointed with how they turned out. I think for me, the only thing that they had really was the threat of Johnson Clark-Harris being the striker that he is at this level. When they had sort of the rare opportunity and the rare burst forward, they always looked like scoring. Well, when we had so much of the ball and so much of the attacking play, I never really thought that we looked like putting the ball in the back of the net. And obviously that's a real problem at the moment. It seems to be a common theme sort of going week in, week out at the moment. But all in all, performance-wise, I was really impressed. I'm just a bit gutted that we didn't capitalise on a good performance and take the 3 points.
Yeah, that's where I sort of came from it. Like at half time, I thought we've looked better than in recent weeks. Obviously, part of that will be due to the fact that we're not playing like an out-and-out top 6 side. We're playing a Peterborough who themselves are more than capable of dropping away. We'll talk about the incident in a minute because we're going to hear it, Tom. But after the red card, we seem to somehow regress, and Dean puts it down to Peterborough going into themselves and just sitting back. And we, as we have found often at times this season, we didn't really have an answer for that.
Yeah, as you say, that's the reason we're down at where we are in the table. We can't kill games off. I know this was another one where we're playing opposition who, as Lewis said, are tougher opposition. So perhaps we're not expecting to get the 3 points, but at the same time, when a team goes down to 10, you think, okay, let's try and take it to them. A point isn't really going to make much difference to us at this stage in the season, so why not give it a go? But in the last 4 games now, we've struggled to really show anything. I don't know how many shots we've had on target in that time, but obviously we haven't scored. And yeah, it's a consistent problem, and it's something that's going to need sorting in the summer. We obviously lost Washington. That's clearly been a big loss. Stockley hasn't been the same since, and now he's gone. And it seems like unless we have Miles Leaburn firing and Jez and Corey, then we haven't really got a plan B. So disappointed, I have to say. When I saw them go down to 10 men, I thought, right, we need to try and make something out of this. As I say, I don't think it's going to affect the outcome of the season, but you still want them to go away and do something. And to finish 0-0 is obviously hugely disappointing off the back of that. But it has been a run of tough fixtures. I was reflecting on that today, the run we've had with them and Sheffield and Derby. These are all teams that are up there. And obviously it doesn't get any easier this weekend. But yeah, we do have to take that into account. The bad thing is that's somewhere we want to be. And at the moment, we can't seem to compete with these teams.
Once more, we are quite away from the top 6 side. Right, let's have a listen to the main talking point, I'd suggest. Probably, some would argue the only talking point from Tuesday evening's game. This is how Greg and Terry described the incident that saw Peterborough reduced to 10 men and somehow Charlton not.
There's also the poor pass as Rak-Sakyi picks it up for Charlton. Drives forward, he looked like to be taken out twice there. Just Rak-Sakyi, and he's not happy with Edwards and just collides into him. And Rak-Sakyi could be in trouble here.
Oh, he's going to be in trouble. Lost it. He got fouled twice.
Oh no!
And he retaliated. I think he just ran into him. I don't think there was any punches thrown or anything like that. I couldn't see from this distance, but he just runs into him out of frustration, and that's going to be a real blow if something bad comes of this.
I think it was on Knight. It's a clear reaction. He runs towards him. Looks like his shoulder collides into the face, and it's a decision for the referee to make. He's going to speak with his assistant referee, but first viewing was not pretty at all. He wasn't happy with the 2 challenges. As we wait and see as the referee will speak, he's asking for players to come away. I mean, there's going to be a yellow card for a Peterborough player. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
He flashed one, but I couldn't see who at just now in the first instance, but depends what they deem Rak-Sakyi's reaction was, whether it was warranted violent conduct, and he's going to his back pocket. Worried about this, I've got to be honest.
Rak-Sakyi's gone so far away. He's also consoling his other assistant referee. I'm not sure he actually saw it, the ref. As he wants to speak with Clark Harris for some reason. And now we'll call over Rak-Sakyi.
Clark Harris is the captain, so that's why he's doing it. There's a second foul coming in from Knight.
So Knight is... Oh, Knight's been red carded.
Wow.
The Peterborough defender.
I didn't see that coming, I've got to be honest. Well, that makes it even more likely that he might flash another one.
Yeah, there's potential kick in the face, I'm being told by Knight, which I haven't spotted yet, but whether that's what caused Rak-Sakyi to potentially react the way he did. And Knight is red carded. We'll wait and see the decision from Rak-Sakyi.
No, he's put his red card away. It's a yellow.
It's a yellow card for Rak-Sakyi.
Oh, well, I'd need to see that again, because from our distance, I don't think we saw too much of that. The only thing we did see was obviously Rak-Sakyi's reaction, and this has spiced up the game a bit.
Well, it certainly has.
So there we go. Jez Rak-Sakyi won the featherweight title, Lewis, but somehow escaped without getting sent off. It was a red card for Josh Knight. I don't think there's any debate about that. I haven't seen too many Peterborough fans saying our bloke never should have been sent off as well. But, I mean, we got away with one there. And the fact that he's been booked means that it's been seen by the referee. It's been dealt with at the time by the referee. It's not an off-the-ball incident, which is one that referees can go back and view retrospectively. I feel like we've won the bloody jackpot there. We've won the lottery. We've got away with that one big time.
Massively. When I saw the initial sort of kick, you couldn't see what Knight did. You just sort of saw Jez through, and you win the foul, and then when you see in the sort of retaliation that followed, I was quite surprised because we'd won the foul already, and you're thinking, right, just get on with it. It's a bad tackle, whatever. What you don't see is that initial kick, I think, in real time, and then when I watched it back, you obviously see Knight kick out, which is what has riled Jez up. Massively surprised that the referee didn't give a red to both, because I mean it's clear to see what Jez's reaction was. For us, I know Dean said he reacted in any way that you would if you were tackled like that, but I disagree with that. Really, I think as soon as you throw an arm or an elbow or a shoulder or whatever at somebody, you're kind of asking for trouble. I think what helped in the situation for me was maybe a little bit of leadership from Michael Hector, because it felt like he pulled Jez out of the situation for the majority of the time that the officials were speaking, and the majority of the time that the Peterborough players were surrounding him. Jez, who was the culprit, was ushered and kind of out of the referee's view the entire time. And whether that played a part in it, because you've got Peterborough players surrounding the ref and they red card his player and Jez is kind of out of the way, I don't know. But it felt like that was a good bit of leadership from Michael Hector to pull a young player out of the situation for a little while, gather his composure and take him back. And I mean, it's pretty obvious we've got away with one for sure. But I think it's one of those things we got to take it. We don't get many refereeing decisions go our way. I think he was the most Charlton lenient referee I've ever seen on Tuesday night, and we don't get them very often. So you know what, the amount of crap decisions we end up taking, I'm going to take this one. But yeah, for me, it's a red for both players.
Yeah, it did feel like he went our way a few times during that game. Luke saying, I wish Jez put as much power into his shots as he did into that shoulder into the geezer's face, which is a fair comment. I mean, it's obviously our top scorer at the moment, but he does fluff a few chances. Freeman's saying he should have been sent off, but he got away with one. The type of player he is, he's been kicked before, and he knew what it was straight away. Fair play to him for standing up to him for himself, because I don't remember seeing that from Jez before in terms of a reaction like that. Partly that might be on the frustration, Tom, with that challenge he was on the receiving end of against Sheffield Wednesday as well. And maybe a little bit of frustration by the fact that we were actually playing okay and not, lacking a cutting edge. I wonder if that played a part in it as well, and that was playing into his frustration for the evening.
Yeah, like you say, it's not in his character, or certainly not that we've seen. And to reference the guy in my little sort of tagline there, he was somebody who was getting clattered every time he used to come on for us, and Jez is the same. He's a tricky player, he's a fast player, he's a skillful player, and so he's there as the person that's going to be sort of picked on and taken out. He's got doubled up on a lot when teams play against him, so it's not like he's never had it before either. But this just seemed to be a bit of a one-off in terms of him reacting like that. I've seen it back a lot of times, watched the clip over and over again. From every time, it looks like he punches him, but at the same time, you do think, well, he is falling. You can kind of see how it could, if the referee caught the wrong angle, you could see how maybe he hasn't seen it the way that most of us have. But yeah, it seems a little bit out of character. As you say, probably a build-up of frustration of a number of things, getting tackled and hurt, combined with the fact that we're not really creating at the moment. But hopefully it's a one-off. Hopefully it's something he'll learn from. Or if he goes back to his parent club, hopefully it's something he continues to do. And then he can't be too effective for them. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, for the rest of this season, obviously, I hope that it doesn't affect him too much.
Yeah, hi to Jonathan West from the Addicts, from the Charlton Upbeats, watching the show live on YouTube. I hope you're well. Jonathan, yeah, so after that, it was there for the taking on paper. We brought on the likes of Corey Blackett-Taylor, Miles Leaburn came off the bench. We had a few half chances. I'd suggest more of those half chances probably came before the red card from memory, but it is starting to become a concern that we've turned into a side that's blunt up top again. It's weird because we've had a couple of really high scoring games, particularly when Ben was still here, no more so than against Saturday's opponents, Plymouth, which still goes down as one of the greatest shocks of all time. Beat a side who are flying by 5-1 when we're not actually that very good. But yeah, we're seeing that little element of struggling to score goals eke back in now, obviously coupled with the news that we heard on Tuesday about Chooks being out for the rest of the season effectively. We are going to start looking light up top again, particularly if Miles isn't able to go every week. He seems to be being sort of managed a little bit at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's a big bugbear, really, isn't it? I think when you look back at the January window, I think we all felt it was an area that we should have strengthened in. I think in bringing Macaulay into the club, we maybe thought that would be an area, but the problem is when you lose Jaden as well out of that, and knowing the injury record of Chucks, you are naturally leaving yourself short, and we're now seeing the effects of that really by not being as active as we should have been in the window, not recruiting in a key area, in an area that we've struggled with for the majority of the season. There's a lot of pressure on a young Miles Leeburn's shoulders, and there has been for most of this season. He seems to be sort of the go-to when it comes to goals. I think he's our second top scorer in his first professional season, which is a great achievement personally for him. But there's not enough. You're sort of following that. There's nobody in that position as a recognised striker that's contributing properly with the goals. Macaulay Bonne looks shot of all confidence in front of goal, and I think he's not scored for a year. Has he for QPR either? So he's a player that's completely shot of any confidence. I think he worked hard Tuesday and he won a few headers and things like that, but they're not the things that win you games. And until we address that, we are going to be struggling. And I feel like we create good chances, but we just don't seem to have the sort of the nous to put it in the back of the net. And one of the frustrations I highlighted a few weeks ago as well was that it seems like we try and pass the ball into the net. Like nobody's got confidence that they're going to put a ball away from any further out than 6 yards. Like we don't have a player that will have a pop from distance if there's nothing on and we'll get lucky with it and score. We've been undone by screamers a couple of times this season where you've just got that player that will find a chance from nothing. We don't tend to have that. And it's a real concern. It's a real concern for me. I'm gutted about the news around Chucks because I thought when he came on Saturday, especially, he looked really, really good. I thought he changed the game. And he's a player that's been out for a long time. And obviously it's very sad for him that he's going to be missing the remainder of the campaign. And who knows how much longer he'll be out beyond that. But it leaves the two options as Miles and Bonne. That's the position we're in now. I don't know whether we'll see Kanu get some minutes between now and the end of the season, given that there's not a huge amount to play for. But yeah, it'll be a real, it's an area that we're going to have to really target in the summer to sort out because we can't carry on the way we are. But for now, we're going to have to just limp by because we've got no choice.
Yeah, and that's been the story at this club for too long. Luke said that if Miles had started, we might have nicked the win. I reckon we were so comfortable. It was a slight change in shape. Again, we went for this free. In the ground, we decided to call it a 3-4-1-2 with Jez sort of playing 10 behind Payne, who was alongside Macaulay Bonne. And like early stages, and probably for most of the game time, I did feel like we got up and down the pitch quite well. And like I said earlier, better than we have done recently. Again, the calibre of opponent that we were facing, Peterborough are a decent enough side, but they're not quite your Sheffield Wednesdays or your Boltons of this world. And that's why they're chasing the playoff pack rather than in it. But in terms of the actual performance, that's why I came away thinking, I quite enjoyed that. I thought we moved it quite well. We got Sess on the pitch, which is important, although he's come off it again now. Obviously, we'll hear from Holden that I think he didn't train today. Fraser didn't train today as well, which is quite interesting. But there were elements of that I thought were quite good. But that's pointless, really, when we don't score goals, and that has been, like we say, the problem that's reoccurring. Now, part of that is Macaulay, He's desperate for a goal now, isn't he? Just to try and bring him back to life. I remember thinking early stages, I thought he's running about quite a bit here. He's putting himself about. He had a shot in the first minute. But like I say, he had a shot near half time that didn't even hit the corner flag. It went out for a throw in. That sort of sums up where he is at the moment.
Yeah, it's gutting for him. I was disappointed when he left. I thought, given the fact that we'd made that step up into the Championship, I thought actually he'd done okay. I'm not going to say he blew the league out the water or anything like that, but he got us some good goals. And I thought in that too, with Lyle, he was performing well up until the season kind of got halted. I understand that people kind of didn't like the way he'd left and felt maybe that we had done well to get rid of him. But I didn't agree with the amount of criticism he got kind of post that, and particularly coming back. And I really wanted him to succeed. And, he did that interview about point to prove. He came back on in that first game and almost scored, obviously setting up the goal when it bounced off the post. So there was a lot of positives there. And then since then, as you say, it just hasn't happened for him. And I think to kind of bring it back to the formation change as well, I think Dean Holden now has finally kind of got to the point where he knows that we are not going up. And as a result of that, he feels he could maybe play around with it a little bit. Whether he's even here next season or not, obviously remains to be seen. But I think he's now in a position where it's a bit of a free hit and he can go, okay, I'm going to try 2 up top. I'm going to try that 1 in behind. I'm going to try, maybe he'll try a flat 4-4-2 at some point, because I think both Miles and Macaulay both work better as a 2. And obviously at the moment that's difficult to do because you haven't then got someone to bring off the bench. But I do wonder if that's what he's trying. I can't see Macaulay staying past the summer. If this was an audition, he obviously hasn't done well enough. But you're then looking at Chucks, and obviously he's going to be going, and you've got just Leeburn there. And you think, just as you've posted there about Murray, someone like Kanu, why not bring him in and give him a go? Because we haven't got any other alternatives this season. And in the summer, if Thomas or me or whoever it is that owns the club by that stage hasn't got a lot of money to put in, we're going to have to rely on youth players anyway. So, I don't see why you wouldn't do it now. If you make your peace with the fact that we're not going up or down, and we're not, then there's kind of nothing to lose. So I do wonder whether that's an option as well, because Macaulay maybe just needs some time at the firing line.
Yeah, I do like the idea of you being part of some sort of consortium that owns the club. Maybe we could get together a Charlton Live whip round, everyone in the comments. Yeah, as you say, I mean, Murray's asking, can we try Daniel Kanu? What have we got to lose? Same from Sam. Evening, gents. With the news with Chucks, I feel we should start using Kanu as an option, or even play Corey up front alongside Miles or Bon. I could feel Corey up front being similar to Jez up front. I feel like we lose his best feature, which is running past people. And his finishing has improved this year, you'd say, with Corey. But yeah, I'd like to see Kanu start getting a run of games sooner rather than later. I'll bring up a table in a minute why I say that I think sooner is probably more possible than we realise. I mean, one thing that Ben did pick up earlier on during the show, said 3 at the back worked a lot better than Saturday. One positive we can take. I mean, I guess part of that will be a Plymouth side that didn't seem to be at it. They probably, ironically, had the best chance of the game, which was the header from Johnson Clark-Harris that Maynard Brewer made a superb save from. But other than that, we weren't actually too troubled at the back, which was quite nice to see, because obviously we don't get that too often. Right, we received an email during the week as well that I just want to bring up from Duncan. Said, as we continue in this cycle of frustration and despair at the current state of our beloved club, with nothing to play for in the remainder of the season, I've been searching for something to give us hope for next year. Yes, it would be a good start if whoever is running the club realises that serious investment is needed to sign the type of players we need to get out of this awful league. However, I think I have found the answer. The football stars are aligning. We should get behind and support Carlisle's promotion bid. Currently, they're in the last automatic place in League 2. We have one promotion at Blundell Park. He's put twice before. It's actually 3 times before, Duncan, because it was 81 and 85, and then obviously 2012. So I think, yeah, I'm certain it's 3 times now, Duncan. So he's saying, can you do a graph for Carlisle to sort of map their progress? So I won't do one for Carlisle, but that's a very good point, because we have excellent luck when Carlisle are in our division. So that's step 1 of the plan, is for them to get promoted. And then just step 2 is just hope that we somehow magic ourselves up there. And the tweet came in from All Hell Let Loose during the week, said, is the season over? Are we safe from relegation? Do we need, or if not, do we still need to play our strongest side until we are safe? Is 55 points safe? Says, can we still make the top 6 as well? Or is there actually nothing left to play for? Now, because we are on this brand new medium of YouTube, so for those of you who are watching, you can see Tom shaking his head already because he knows exactly what's coming up. Not only is it the graph, it's the new and improved graph that I shall now add to the stream here. So for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the graph which shows Charlton's line progress this season mapped out in red, plus a yellow dotted line, which is our projection if we continued on our points per game for the rest of the season. Then we've got a blue line, which is the average for the playoffs over the last 5 years, is 75 points, 74.8. To stay up over the last 5 years, 48.2. Now, just to add a bit more context into this season, I've now added a couple of dotted lines that show this year's current 6th place and this year's current 21st place. So the team that are currently likely to finish in the last place in the relegation zone would finish actually on 43.2 points as they're going at the moment. So 5 points shy of where we predicted they would be earlier on in the season. So that is 21st is Morecambe. So they're currently 20th, but on a points per game ratio, they'll be 20th. Now, to finish 6th, Currently, Bolton are in 4th, but they've played a couple more games than others, so they're likely to finish 6th. And if they go at their current trajectory, they will finish on 81.5 points. Now, if you're wondering what that means for us, if we were to win every one of our remaining 14 games, we would finish on 82 points. So my theory is that we can't afford to drop another point at all if we think we might make the playoffs. But what I am saying is effectively, we're probably, we're on 41 points now. You're looking at roughly 43, 44 to stay up. So we probably are already safe as well. So that's where we are on that front. So, I mean, the good news is, Tom, the season is over, so you've got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, and I got to see your graph in all its glory again with some tweaks. So lucky me. But yeah, I think, look, I can't remember when it was, a couple of games ago, I texted you and I conceded that I was now on board with the graph. I'm not happy about it. I don't like it. But realistically, yeah, unless we go and lose every single game now, we're going to be fine. And it's just frustrating, isn't it, to get to this stage of the season again and know that that's done, and know that you're kind of having to think about, right, do I drag myself to games, particularly the away games, but even the home games now, like, it suddenly becomes a bit of a chore because you're not playing for anything. So, yeah, I mean, we're safe. That's the good news. But, I mean, the good news starts and ends there, really. And again, we're in February and we're talking about next season, or March now, and we're talking about next season already. And that's the disappointment.
Yeah. Murray says, oh, God, not the graph. And Dan did ask earlier on in the show about how Jack Payne got on Tuesday, and just said, why don't we try him as more of a false 9 with Liban up front and both wingers getting in the box more. I thought he was lively, but again, no cutting edge. Like, so he probably missed our best chance, which was a pullback, I think, from Sessegnon to him, and he dragged it across the face of goal. He's one of those players who sort of flattered to deceive a bit this season. Like, I don't know, that's the way I've seen it. Like, he has his moments, but actually, and his numbers were okay at the start of the season. I just don't know if he's consistent enough, and you know, whether he's one of a number of players we've brought in from the league below that have done okay, but obviously not enough to fire us to anywhere near the upper level of that beautiful graph that we just saw. Right, let's hear what Dean Holden had to say after the game against Peterborough United. I spoke to the Addicts boss at London Road and asked him for his opinion on the performance. 0-0 here at Peterborough. What did you make of it overall?
I thought we started the game excellently. I think that first 45-minute period, we came with a game plan to, we needed, from what we've seen recently, we needed so many more final third entries, box entries on the opposition, and we got that. We got runners in behind with Payne, and we knew he'd do that. Scotty Fraser, even Jez at times, Macaulay obviously, and we got into some really good areas. And again, recently we've been getting in them areas and then coming back and passing it back. And, we wanted to sustain attacks and deliver the ball into the box. I don't know what the numbers of our crosses were tonight, but some really good deliveries going in there, and just couldn't quite get on the end of it. I think, again, start the second half, I thought we started excellently, got right on the front foot for 10 minutes or so, and obviously then we see the red card and the game changes in terms of how they then approach it. We knew coming into the game that their fullbacks would go really aggressive and high against our wing-backs, and we knew there were spaces to run into them. Spaces for us, our forwards to run into, like I just touched on. So that wasn't there once they're sending off. So you're playing for 30, 35 minutes, whatever it was, with 10 men. People would think it's easy. It's not, because there's no space. And then you're looking for a moment of quality. And we had a few of them, in fairness. I can think of the Miles Lieber when he turned and slid Corey in. The keeper makes a good save. And again, just overall, our finishing probably wasn't quite at the level. It was a little bit erratic, and we probably slashed at a few things, and just need to be a little bit calmer in front of goal. But I'll tell you, we've played a lot worse than that and won, I think.
I think the red card will probably be the main talking point for a lot of people this evening, knowing that Jez has been booked, and we can probably speak quite openly because you can't take retrospective action when that's happened. Is he lucky to still be on the pitch?
I've only seen the one angle. I'll be totally honest, I didn't see it. I'm not giving it the Arsene Wenger one. I genuinely didn't see it at the time, because I knew the fourth official had already told me that their player was getting a red card and ours was getting a yellow. So at that point, I'm sort of in with my coaching staff thinking about how we're going to approach that in terms of game plan. I've seen it back on one angle. Jez has told me that he just shrugs him off him. It looks like he's swung something, but Jez said he just literally swings a forearm to sort of push him away from him. I mean, he's gone on the floor, and this is 4 days after what happened at the weekend when he only got his legs broke, and he's been stamped on. And yeah, we want our players to be law abiding at all times, but half a second after being stamped on, it's difficult to keep you cool. So I think he's got him away from him. I think if you're stamped on, you want to get someone away from you. I think that's a natural reaction. So no complaints at all.
You mentioned the amount of time Charlton spent in and around the edge of the penalty area. It's a few games without scoring now. Is that just a frustration, a slight lack of cutting edge at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's exactly that. I think I'll be a little bit careful sometimes. You keep banging on about something that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, we keep the confidence. The players' confidence is okay. We have straight conversations after every game, and the way that panned out in the end, it was disappointing because we had all the ball. Again, like recently, we've had a lot of ball and not really been as cutting as we were in the first half. So we had to make the change we made. I think Corey, we looked at it for 10 minutes after the red card because I think we still had all the momentum at that point. We were still getting up the pitch quickly, even with the back three. But then we felt, obviously, Corey coming in with his pace against Thompson, and we could lose the centre half at that point. Michael got a kick first half, was a little bit feeling it, so that was a sensible thing to do. And we were going to take Sean off, to be fair. Sean was feeling something, and then Cess goes in for that great tackle and then just felt something. So we had to obviously get Matty on for Cess, and obviously you've got to get Miles Leeburn on 20-25 minutes. And why take McCauley off at that point? Why not go 4-4-2? And just, as I said, we just couldn't quite find that moment.
You haven't drawn many games on you. I think this is the second one. The first one was also against Peterborough. Before today, I sort of said on air I thought a point would be a good result, but with the game, the way the game panned out, would you still agree with that?
Yeah, I don't think you can ever stand there and say, when you've played against 10 men for 35 minutes, you're ever going to be pleased with a point. I would never say that. I think I was pleased with a lot of aspects of the performance. As I say, we've played a lot worse and won. The important thing is we've stopped with the losing run. Even though it was only 2 games, obviously, and we go to Plymouth with high hopes now. It's thanks to our supporters again tonight. They turn up in numbers on a Tuesday night, and I was just pleased we could get the game on.
I heard speaking to the TV before about Chuck's and such a dreadful shame. He's had the worst luck since he's come to the club and other times in his career as well. It must be frustrating for him.
Really disappointing for him. I think it's important that we get round him, and I spoke to him last night once we got the scan result over the phone. It was quite late, and obviously spoke with him this morning before we travelled up to Peterborough. But it's important that we show that support to him. He's a really well liked guy within the club. He's just had a really stop-start frustrating season, and he's as frustrated as anybody. So particularly after the sort of fitness work he'd been doing recently to get himself back into the squad, and he looked good when he came on Saturday, didn't he? So it's disappointing. If we see him this season, I think it'd be a real bonus. I think I'd be surprised if we see him this season. But as I said all along, it's important that Chucks gets himself fit and gets back out on the pitch, because he's one hell of a player when he's fit.
Before the game, I saw you speaking to a familiar face. Obviously, Jim Rodwell was part of the club a few weeks ago, and he's gone now. Was that for yourself a bit of a frustrating conversation, knowing that you're someone you were working with just a few weeks ago, and now he's gone already?
I thought you said the red card would be the talking point. I think no. Listen, Jim Rodwell worked at Peterborough for a period of time before he came to Charlton Athletic. Obviously, I've not seen him since. We were working closely, myself, Jim, Andy Scott, obviously, and the other guys, and I think, what was it, 2.5 weeks or whatever it was, it just obviously overnight, just literally that was it. So I've not seen any of the guys since then, and no, Jim came to the game. I think we came with Ed, actually. Ed's a big Peterborough fan. They both live local, so I think Jim just wanted to get out of the house and go and watch a game of football, and just came and said hello pre-game. So no, it was just a general chit-chat, really.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview. We just heard there from the Addicts boss, Dean Holden, after the goalless draw with Peterborough in mid-week. I asked him right at the end about the fact he was cited talking to Jim Rodwell with my journalist hat on. I was very excited about the fact that we were still going through this weird story with the Charlie Mevin failed takeover, and obviously Rodwell being at the game. Along with, I've been told as well that Ed Warwick was going to be there. I thought, well, maybe there's something worth asking here, especially now there's a photograph of them talking. But he was just there to watch a game of football, so it wasn't actually that interesting. But I mean, that there has been developments today. I guess there was that Charlie Mevin statement very briefly on the SLP website yesterday. Rich decided himself, actually, he wanted to take it down for legal and whatnot reasons. He probably needed an eye over by someone else first. So that's what happened with that. But I think we basically all saw it. With your fan advisor hat on, Lewis, what do you make of that?
Crazy, isn't it? Crazy. I just want it sorted out, mate. To be honest, I'm sick of like the off the field stuff always dominating the headlines of us. We're such a big club and such a brilliant club with lots of amazing people that can't crack on because there's all this nonsense going on upstairs all the time. I mean, I don't know how much of a stance Charlie Methven is going to take on this. I don't know how much it would hold out in a court if it got that far. I don't know the ins and outs of what that deal was. I mean, I've read his statement, but I've read plenty of statements from owners, past and present, that have not been overly with it, should we say. So, look, I think it's one of those things that it's just noise at the moment that's frustrating because, you know, we've got lots going on the pitch that we need to sort out. We've got a manager that's contracts up at the end of the season. We've got lots of players that contracts are up at the end of the season. We need to make a decision on what they're going to be doing next year. There are more, you know, the most important thing that we sort out is the ownership of this football club, but there's so much to do that all this stupid, unnecessary squabbling over statements and stuff, putting things out in the open to try and sort of gain attention. I just can't be arsed with any of it. I just want the football club to be put in the right hands, someone that's going to invest properly, is going to let the football people make the football decisions, and can just let us thrive properly as a football club, because the potential here is massive with the academy, the training ground, the stadium, the lot. And it's just getting stupid now. There are too many egos in football. You know, this is a football club. It's not something that you mess around with. It's a football club that means a lot to people. And it's about time that somebody just sorted this mess out, because it's so frustrating for me in my position as well, because, you know, I'm a fan and it hurts me as much as it hurts anybody. And I'm trying as much as I can to do something, and I'm getting nowhere. So we just got to hope that it gets sorted soon.
It's the same for everyone, really, isn't it? Right. Murray said, is it time to have a protest about the state of ownership now that we've got little to play for? The Supporters Trust apparently have a meeting again with Sandgard soon. We're hoping to have someone from the Supporters Trust on Sunday just to sort of clarify the legal point of view with what Charlie Methven has said over the last few days, but also obviously there will be questions about what's going on in terms of the messages to Sandgard. We had Heather on this time last week who said, you know, it's like banging their heads against the wall. I think we saw a statement from Cast as well this week, sort of saying how hard it is to get hold of Sandgard at this moment in time. Patrick said he enjoyed the way that the fans got behind Jez when the Peterborough fans were giving his stick. Yeah, it was really funny hearing them all chanting off only for their own player to get sent off. Right, Sam's asked a question. Do you have any news on Dean's contract talks today? So, yeah, he had sort of dropped into conversation over the weekend that he was having talks today with Sandgard about something. So, of course, Terry very kindly asked about that during today's press day.
I mentioned last week that you had a meeting today regarding all sorts of things, not least yourself. How did that meeting go? Is there anything you can share regarding that? The fans will want to know.
As soon as I said that last week, I was like, as you put a deadline on something now, it's going to be, what's going on? It was a planned meeting. We had Steve Gallen was in there. We did some Martin Sangay. We did some bits on recruitment. We had Tony was in from operations and Geary the grounds. It was more around logistical stuff. It was around pitch renovations, both here at the training ground and at the Valley, pre-season fixtures. We need to be ahead of the game in terms of obviously recruitment, but we need to be ahead of the game with pre-season, the trip, the fixtures, because very quickly teams that you want to play have already got games lined up and stuff like that. So it wasn't what everybody thought it was about. Far from it. It was purely around, as I've spoke about before, you know, moving this club forward, getting stuff ready for pre-season and beyond, really.
There we go. So a whole load of nothing, really. that meeting, it turns out, that certainly hasn't given any clarity on the situation with Dean's contract. You know, it's nice that he's speaking about next season, but Jacko was having these sort of conversations with Thomas this time last week as well. Right, let's hear from the women's team briefly. They were knocked out of the FA Cup by Birmingham City over the weekend after extra time, but they returned to Championship action this Sunday, and it's a home game at the Valley as well. So a chance to get down and support the girls in SC7 for just the second time this campaign. Now, Corrine Henson spoke to the club earlier on this week to look back at that game against the Blues, and of course ahead to Sundays, I should say, home tie with Southampton at the Valley.
Corin, first of all, kicking things off with the result of the weekend, obviously narrow 1-0 defeat to Birmingham City in extra time. How would you assess the performance overall?
Well, I think performance-wise, there are a lot of positives to take that we now look into the league with. Obviously, unfortunate to exit the FA Cup, but our focus is the league now, and at least we can be tunnel visioned in wanting to achieve a positive outcome by the end of the season.
Obviously, you came into the club in the summer, and you kind of came in as like a forward floating role. You've kind of really established yourself now as a fullback. How's that kind of come about, and how are you finding that position?
I think in terms of coming in, I sort of was a bit all over the pitch, and I think for me, now I've sort of established my identity as a defender, and I think stature-wise and just the attributes that I bring are more suited to a defensive role, and I can see that with the consistency of performances that I've been putting in. I'm really enjoying it. I can see progression throughout many years in that position.
Nice. And obviously this weekend taking on Southampton, opening game of the season, Charlton beat them 2-0, but Southampton have really grown, you should say, and could say, across the course of this season. How much of a tough test do you think they're going to be?
Yeah, no, they've massively grown into the league. Obviously, getting promoted, they've made massive gains, and we can see that now. They're going to pose a different challenge when we come up against them at the weekend. But that's like any team that you're going to come up against in this league. So we're just going to focus on ourselves and get the job done at the end of the day.
Obviously, playing at the Valley is always a big occasion for any Charlton player. How excited are you in the group to be playing there?
No, absolutely. It's been a while since we played there, and obviously we want to get as many fans out there as possible and hopefully put on a good show, and most importantly, get the 3 points.
There we go. That's Karine there looking ahead to the game at the Valley on Sunday. If you can get down to support the girls, hopefully they'll put in a performance similar to the game with Birmingham earlier on this season, which really was a good performance, a 3-0 win. Southampton just a couple of places above the Addicts, but China got 2 games in hand on them. So if they can win this one, that'll give them a real chance to sort of climb back up into the 4th or 3rd position over the next few weeks. Right, we are going to bring in a special guest to look ahead to the Plymouth game from the opposition view. Welcome to Finn from Argyle Live. Finn, welcome to Charlton Live. How are you, mate?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good indeed. Thanks very much for joining us at fairly short notice as well.
No
but I imagine you're sort of in a position where you just want to talk about Plymouth Argyle all the time at the moment because you guys are absolutely flying.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, it's not too long ago since we were going through a similar situation to yourself in a way. So, so to be in a position that we are after a couple of, good seasons where we've built on it, and and now at the top of the league is really pleasing.
The concern, I guess, for Plymouth fans this year, and it is probably one that other teams in this division have tried to play on. So we spoke to a Sheffield Wednesday fan last week who was just waiting for Plymouth to drop away a little bit. Obviously, that's what happened last season. You've got a lot more of a cushion this year. You've still got a 7 or 8 point gap down to 3rd in Ipswich. I mean, what are you confident that this can be the year where you sort of hold your nerve and make your way up into the Championship?
I mean, we certainly built up a little bit of a reputation amongst other teams in the division for dropping off. And I would say, as a fan base, we're probably... I mean, we're as confident as we can be, I reckon, with being quite pessimistic at the same time, because we didn't expect to be here at the start of the season. So now that we're here, and now we've got kind of like a good chunk of a lead behind us, it feels like it's now we're in the situation it's ours to lose kind of thing, rather than so we've gone through the season not really expecting much. I'm still not expecting much. I obviously want to get promoted, but I'm still not expecting. If we were to drop into the playoff, it would be to probably Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday, who are just 2 huge clubs with far bigger budgets than us. But I would be confident. Obviously, we've recently lost our probably our best player in goal in Michael Cooper, who got injured against Sheffield Wednesday, and that's been a big blow to us. And then obviously, we had a poor result on the weekend, but our home form has been so good. So I'm kind of looking at that and going, well, hopefully that's the thing that kind of carries us through to promotion,
Yeah, I think is it 1 defeat at home all season? When I was looking at the stats, it was just incredible turnout. I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, so you played your last game was also Peterborough at London Road. You lost by 5 goals to 2. I mean, can you give us any tips as to what they did so we can maybe try that on Saturday?
Yeah. So, I think so. Obviously, Peterborough well, if you asked a Peterborough fan, they'd probably be disappointed about where they are in the table this year. You know, they've got a great squad, and they always look like a team that could threaten. And I think like they've obviously been quite consistent. I mean, I don't look too closely on their results, but I saw, you know, a few weeks ago they lost 5-0 at home to Bolton, and then they seem to be a team that are just very, very inconsistent, but also with the ability to be able to open teams up. And usually when we lose big, because we're a side that, you know, even though we had we were 2-0 down early in the game, our automatic instinct is to go for it rather than sit back and just think, oh, we'll lose 2-0, because obviously we ship quite a lot of goals, but we also score quite a lot.
Which is it's always a good place to be in. I mean, it's one that we're in as well, although not quite in the right sort of amounts of each one. So I mean, just looking ahead to Saturday, then obviously we know where our threats are. Where are the threats in the Plymouth side? Obviously, Ryan Hardy scored a lot of goals this season, but who would you say are the danger men at this moment in time?
Yeah, I mean, our midfield, particularly after reinforcements in January, is fairly strong, and actually I think is a bit of a problem for us at the moment, getting the balance right in midfield, because our manager seems to he's got a big squad now, and he's in recent weeks he's basically rotated every game. We've been joking that as fans, it's a bit like we call it shoey roulette, because we don't know who he's going to pick from one week to the next, you know. But we in midfield, we're particularly strong with like Finn Azaz, who's one to look out for. Jay Matete, who's we got on loan from Sunderland for the rest of the season, who's obviously had good periods in this division already with Fleetwood and then Sunderland. And then even Danny Mayer, who every time he comes up against any opposition, he causes problems for them, just because he's anything but a goal scorer, but his ball retention and his ability to create space is so good that every time he plays, we seem to gel a bit better. So I'm hoping that he plays this week along with Azaz, because I feel that when those two are playing, we're probably at our best. And then we've got Callum Wright as well, I should add, who we got on a permanent transfer from Blackpool in January, and you know, he came with high. He's done well, not amazing, but well so far, and he came with high accolades from Cheltenham fans previously. So yeah.
It's always dispiriting for me, because when I go on other podcasts and people ask me for all our best players, I'm over in about 10 seconds. You had quite a few to give us there. Look, Finn, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming live on Charlton Live. You've actually been our first live opposition guest, so you've done a cracking job there, mate. So thanks for coming in, and all the best for the rest of the season. See you later, mate. That's Finn from Argyle Life, who very kindly joined us on Charlton Live this evening. I like the idea of that shoey roulette. Should we start Macaulay Bond roulette? Which corner flag will he be nearer to with his next shot? I'm not sure. Right, let's hear from Dean Holden. Don't forget in the comments, let us know what changes you'd like to see ahead of the game with Plymouth. Who would you start up top? That sort of stuff. That's all open. But obviously we have now gone, like I said, nearly 6 hours without a goal. So Dean Holden was asked about that by Terry as part of his look ahead to Saturday's trip down to Plymouth.
Where all the money spent in teams is at the top end of the pitch, and we've got some good players. Listening, we've had 3 games without the goal. You know, we're not getting too carried away. I'm very cautious. Talk about something too much, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it can become. So I always think back to a boxer. If a boxer's in a scrap and he starts second guessing things, he'll get his head boxed off. You've got to go. You've got instinct. We got good players. No problem.
We saw Cess pull up on Tuesday night. It didn't look like he wanted to come off. It looked like he thought he could carry on, but you took him off anyway. How is Cess after that game? And the squad generally, we got 3 games in a week, and some people I haven't mentioned, Mandela Egbo and Tolkien. How are they progressing as well?
Cess, he's not trained today, so again we'll reassess where we're at tomorrow. Scotty Fraser the same, didn't train. So Manny Egbo is due to play for the under-21s tomorrow. So that's a real positive. He's obviously, I've not seen him at all since I've come into the job. He's had a tough time in terms of the length of the injury. But I've spoken before about his behaviour off the pitch in terms of his leadership and helping the youngsters out. He's been in every team meeting. So it's great to have him back on the grass. I think he'll play 45, maybe 60 minutes tops tomorrow. That's a real step in the right direction for him. Todd's still a couple of weeks away, I think, from joining the group. It was a tricky sort of injury. We got the scan result, and he's going in the right direction. Just a time frame for Todd.
Good news. Off to Home Park to face Plymouth on Saturday. They've just suffered, you mentioned before, heavy defeat to Peterborough, but that result came just after the euphoria of them getting to Wembley, which could have, I suppose, been a reason for it, and the euphoria of that. But do you expect them to be a reaction from them, having had that defeat, and they put the Wembley thing to one side? You'll be expecting a tough game for sure.
Yeah, for two reasons. I think where they are in the league, I think they've proved throughout the season they can respond to a setback. Obviously, it was a surprise result. To be honest, it probably could have been 7-all at that game last week, and they ended up losing it 5-2. They had big moments themselves. They've got good players, and I know Stephen, the manager, well, played with him a long time ago. Tough scouser. So for a second reason, I know he'll be right on them to get a response. So no, it'll be a tough game. I mean, in recent times we've obviously had the Derby game, Sheff Wednesday, Peterborough. I think flying 10 points above us in the league, and obviously this one. So it's been a tough run against us, but we go there with confidence. And I'm looking forward to it. It's a good test.
It's a case, I guess, of imposing our game on them as we did second half Sheff Wednesday and then at Peterborough on Tuesday.
Yeah, for sure. And anyone who was at the game the other night, they saw a mixture, I think, of stretching the opposition, as touched on there, with midfield runners and getting in behind them, which is where we want to get to, but also some good football to get to that point. This is not about playing direct football and getting it back to front. We've not got the players that could play like that. It's just some decision making once we get in certain parts of the pitch to give us more goal scoring opportunities, and that's the message, and that won't change.
There we go. That's Dino looking ahead to Saturday's trip down to Home Park then to take on Plymouth, who, as we heard there with Finn, they've only lost one game at home all season. It's a long time since they were beaten at home. How do we change that on Saturday, Lewis?
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Well, we've got to be more clinical with the chances that we create. If we can get on the front foot like we did on Tuesday, away from home, then look, I know Peterborough and Plymouth are completely different sides, but we got to get on the front foot, make the most of our chances. For me, I think Corey and Jez have to start. I'm not sure how you get that to work in the system with the three at the back, but maybe there'll be a space for Corey at wing back if Sess isn't going to be fit. But I think you have to have both of them in the side because they're so creative, the two of them. Whatever striker they have in the middle, you'd like to think will be feeding on opportunities, but the problem is at the moment putting them away. So we got to hope that Miles is fit Saturday to start, because I think that makes a difference too. But it's going to be a tough test. As Finn said, they've got an abundance of really, really good quality players. I worried that they'd fall away when they lost Morgan Whittaker in January, and they haven't. They've kind of kept it up, and they've backfilled those goals throughout the pitch, which is something maybe we haven't done. So it's going to be a really tough test, but we've got to go up there and fancy it. We had it with Sheffield, with them, being 20 games unbeaten or whatever. Only lost one game at home all season. Maybe we'll be the second. Who knows? Got to be optimistic. It's a long way to go to be defeatist.
Yeah, well, Port Vale have won there. If they can do it, surely anyone. I know they beat us, but Port Vale are a massive club. Tom, the formation is one, so I'll put it in the chat. Like, who would people like to see come into the side? And very, very good of Jonathan West, who'd like to see himself come into the side, but he does score goals for the upbeat, so I'm not against that idea, to be fair. But Aaron Henry's a name that's come up a couple of times. Carnew's obviously a name that's come up quite a few. Even Tyrese Campbell that Murray has put into his chat, along with Carnew and Henry. At some point, the youth players will have to come in. I don't know if Saturday's the day for them, when it is a tough away trip against a Plymouth side who are flying at home. But at some point, maybe even if it's off the bench for a little while.
Yeah, I definitely think they deserve an opportunity. I know on one of the shows you were saying, I think it was you or someone on the show was saying maybe it's a little bit too early in the season and you wouldn't usually see it at this stage. But look, maybe 1 or 2 more wins is going to secure League One football again for next year. So maybe that's what Dean's thinking, is get that 1 more win. But after that, people who are on loan or people who are going to go, people like Jez, I know he's a good player, but I don't really see the point in playing them anymore. It's not like he's bringing 26, 27,000 through the door just because he's playing. So, yeah, people like Henry, who, when he's come on, I think has looked good. Tyrese has had moments where he's looked good. And as we said earlier, Kanu, who I think deserves a bit of a chance. These are the future of Charlton. And as I say, realistically, particularly if I do go on to own the club, by the way, certainly will be playing because I can't afford to buy anybody else. So, yeah, they're the future. They're who we're going to need next season, probably. And so why not blood them? But maybe it's just a couple of weeks too early. I think, like somebody had commented, stick with the 3-5-2 for now. If that's the formation we think might work and might get us a goal, then let's just try and pursue that and see how it goes. I'd like to see Payne get given a bit of a run and try and capture some form. But yeah, I'm under no illusions. This is going to be a very, very difficult game. I know they've had a little bit of a wobble recently with some big games, but this is not a big game for them, and their home record is very, very good. So it's going to be tough for us.
Yeah, Andrew has mentioned, is it Ryler in the 21s as well? We saw him in one of the Papa John's games earlier on in the season, made his debut, didn't he? Yeah, Mitchell mentioned by Dan as well. Obviously, Zach's made a horror show in the Papa John's game at Plymouth. I forgot we played that game earlier on in the season, actually. So actually, officially, our last meeting with them was that one. But in terms of, as we heard in the presser there from Dino, obviously Egbo coming back soon, as Sam mentioned in the chat earlier, is excellent news. I can't wait for Egbo to come back because I thought we looked really dangerous Tuesday night with an attacking fullback in Cesc getting in behind the lines, which Claire, that's sort of an attribute he should have, but he doesn't do it as well as Egbo for me. Now, an interesting point that was made by Dino Lewis is that Fraser missed training. And to be honest, like, I wouldn't be against him having a little rest anyway, because there's been a few times where he's not really offered as much as we'd hoped recently. So the question then becomes, well, who comes in instead? Is it Morgan? Can Payne drop into the midfield area if Lee Burn's fit enough to start alongside Bon? Is there another choice that you'd prefer?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, but I agree with you on Fraser, because I think Tuesday was he looked really leggy. He looked a bit sort of worn out. For me, I think the choice, if we're sticking with that system, then I'd straight swap him for Albie, because although Albie maybe doesn't do it enough, I think he's got sort of that one pass in him that can change a game. I don't think he's more capable of being a little bit more of an outlet in terms of assists than maybe the others are. Aaron Henry's mentioned a bit. I mean, he only came on for a short spell on Tuesday, but I don't know. It's a tough game to chuck him into. So for me, I'd probably go for the straight swap and bring Albie in, because I think he has something to offer. I think it's just the consistency from him we don't see enough. But when he does get it right, he can be a bit of a game changer with his passing range and ability to assist.
Away from home under Dean, we've been a bit better, Tom. It was ironic that fans at Peterborough singing "How rubbish must you be?" We're drawing away at 0-0 when we'd won before that game 3 of our last 4 away games. We have picked up on the road a bit under Dean. Obviously, that will be put to the test against the Plymouth side, who have been very good at home. As we saw against Derby, when we've actually played a big club away from home, we've struggled to get in the game. So it'd be interesting to see if we can find a way to actually be in it a bit more. The Derby game we weren't. So that will be the main challenge for Dean. Like, he saw bits and pieces of his midfielders getting forward and supporting the forward line on Tuesday, which helped. He'll be wanting more of that sort of performance on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. And a few shows ago when I was on, I was speaking about our away form not being great prior to him coming in. And obviously that has changed, which is great. But you're right, Derby game wasn't brilliant. And obviously Peterborough, again, we failed to score, although we were probably in the game a little bit better. But obviously, if we're not going to score, then we're not going to come away from Plymouth with 3 points. So, yeah, I guess it depends, again, to kind of go back to what I've been saying throughout the show. Is Dean thinking that this is a game we can go and get 3 points and therefore I'm going to play all my best players and I'm going to tell them to go for it? Or is it a game where he rotates some players in to see what they're made of? And if it's the former, if he does go with that strong team, then as you say, he needs to see a little bit more of them. And at this stage, we're kind of almost getting to that point now where it's like, just score a goal, whatever it takes. Even if we lose 2-1, at least we've got a goal back and proven we can do it, because that's the concern now. To go 4 straight games without scoring, I'm sure it happens probably more than you realise, but given the run we've been on and given where we are in the league, then that's a bit of a concern. So, yeah, motivation. I think somebody mentioned it in the comments. Motivation's the other big thing. Maybe that's just starting to drop off with a few players. And hopefully if Dean notices that, he'll be quick to take them out of the side and play someone who actually wants to play as well.
Yeah, it's interesting about motivation. I could feel mine waning during the week. I do wonder if that's partly why I came away from that game. I feel I quite enjoyed that because I didn't really care whether we won or lost. At least we saw him running up and down the pitch a bit, and there was a funny red card incident. Anyway, right, we've run out of time on this week's big match preview. Thanks for everyone who joined us for the live stream on YouTube. Thanks for everyone who's listened, of course, to the podcast or rewatch the YouTube afterwards as well. It's I really enjoy doing these live shows now. Back to it like we used to do before COVID. So I'm really pleased for everyone who joined us. Thanks to Finn from Argyle Live who was on the show earlier. Thanks to Lewis and Tom for joining me as well.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, lads.
Good to speak to the pair of you. Right, I'm Louis Mendez. Don't forget, we'll be back on Sunday then to look back at the game against Plymouth Argyle. Hopefully, we'll have someone on from the Supporters Trust as well to talk a little bit about what's going on off the field. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well at Charlton Live. Make sure you see our videos live every time. You'll never miss another one. Right, thanks for listening. We shall see you again on Sunday.